What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com, and today we're going to be looking at the next step in getting a great mix: the drums. What's up, everybody? It's Concrete Zebra with Craftmaster Productions and Studio1Tutorials.com. Recently we did a video about the first step in getting a great mix. We went over gain staging, and today we're going to be looking at the next step. This isn't a hard fast rule, like you don't have to do your drums first. If you go and you watch interviews with different mixers, you'll see that everybody kind of has their own preference. It's usually people either start with the drums or the vocals. The reason that more pros might be apt to start with vocals is because they're mixing in big rooms on big speakers, and you're dealing with the potential for real ear fatigue at that point. So they'll like to do something like the vocals, a softer sound, while their ears are still fresh in the session, because they're on a time constraint. They can't just come back to it. They have the time in the studio and that's it. And then if you're doing a whole bunch of percussion first, you can wear your ears out. So, that's real. So, like I said in the previous video, in between doing your parts, you want to take breaks. You definitely want to be taking breaks every 45 minutes to an hour, because your mind will start playing tricks on you at that point. So anyhow, what I did was, I unpacked my drum folder. What I like to do with organizing my mixes is if you look at my production template video, I have a drum bus and a band bus, and then when I bring my vocals in, I bring my vocals into a vocal bus, and then those buses will be routed to a filter bus or a bypass, and then it'll go into a mix bus fader, and then to my main fader. So I will arrange folders, that resemble my buses in the arrange window. That way it just makes everything neater, because I don't need to see this. That's a lot of mousing around, and in order to expand the session, you wind up getting something like this, and you're looking for stuff and you can get distracted. So once you have your gain staging correct, you should have already had your organization correct. If you hadn't, at this point, get organized, make sure all your tracks are named. And I like to start with the drums, because for the way that I mix, and for the sound that I like, as long as the drums are up front and present and dominating, the instrumental, I'm gonna get a good sound. And that's because I do a lot of it's all urban music. It's all dominated by the kick and the 808. So if you're doing a lot of kick driven, 808 driven music, this technique works really well. I mentioned that what I wanted to do, that a good technique to do was to sit and listen to what you got, and then write down what you like and what you didn't like. What I came up with, one of the issues I came up with, was I really liked my kick that I chose for this song. It's this one right here. Now, the part of the song that it plays in, there's no long sustained 808. It's just because it is an R&B song. This is part of like kind of like the intro, where it's more of a slower build. It's not something where you're slamming into the whole beat unmuted within the first 4 bars of the song. She's kind of building up to what she's saying, and in the context of everything, it kind of gets drowned out. The kick does. Here, I'll let you listen. You see how when we go into the section labeled bass here, that all of a sudden the speakers or your headphones are flooded with this sub content, and it kind of creates this uneven feeling. And that's one of my biggest pet peeves when I'm mixing like that kind of stuff. um for my ears and for my taste, like it going from one section to another, if the bottom end doesn't match, it just sounds, I don't like the way it sounds. It makes me very uneasy. It makes it feel very amateurish. So what I did to fix that issue was I went ahead and I found a short 808 sample that I had, that matched the key of the track, and I just drug it in. This is something that I do sometimes when I'm just working quick. Is I just drug it in on the playlist, on the arrange window, okay, and everywhere. And I did it just like how you see it right now. I just copied it and pasted it over and over like that. And that's how I made up the part. That's one way. You don't have to trigger something in a sampler always, if this is an easier way to work out. I know a lot of people who use like Ableton will do that. So once I went ahead and put that in, instantly you could notice the difference. Dream of the day we'd be together, but you're far away. But now know you and me together. You got my love now. Grab a hold, so right there, just instantly you feel it feels more natural. It doesn't feel like you're going from a room where there's where there's no air in it, and then all of a sudden boom, you're getting hit with all this sub air. If you notice also, if you look at my mixer, you see that I've got very you know unpronounced changes in volume. And this was, like I was saying in the gain staging tutorial, once you get everything balanced before you use these faders, it makes these faders so much more powerful, because now once you have a balance, you get so much more resolution. So when you make these little small bumps in your volume, it makes a bigger impact, because because you're not trying to make this big sweeping change. You're really just trying to make a minute change, and it helps out a lot, obviously, because you have more resolution. So that was the first thing that I solved. The processing on the 808s and the kicks is something that I do first. I like to get the 808 sounding right. Now I pretty much, since I've been doing 808 work for forever, I kind of know what I want to hear outside of the context of the mix. So and then I could put it all in and then adjust it. This is my favorite distortion plugin, as far as doing like harmonics and stuff like that. A lot of people like the Sound Toys Decapitator. That's also great too. But for this one, I didn't really need to use that much, because it's just a an R&B song. Normally for a trap type of vibe, I would do something something more aggressive, like this. But when you're in the R&B world, you you want your 808 to be really mellow, um, or I do for my taste. it kind of gives everything a softer feel. And then when you stack it with the kick, when and when I'm doing a mix like this, and I'm looking, I'm listening and I'm looking at the levels. The kick is the kick and the 808. These two elements. This is my guide for how loud I'm making everything. Nothing's really gonna be louder than this combination. Because I want it to be a bass heavy record. So when I'm doing this, I'm also looking at my master fader and making sure I'm not going over this -6. And that's kind of how I bring in my balance. The next thing I had in here was my snare. The way that this was treated originally, it sounded like this. Which, I mean, it's fine. It's not a bad sound, whatsoever. But stylistically, for where R&B's at right now, you kind of have more of a high cut drum kind of thing. I wanted to give it that type of feel without totally going underwater. And then you'll notice, so this is the first change I made. Then you'll notice the sample itself has a lot of bass content, and it's a snare. I don't really need it. I don't need that sound competing with the 808. I don't need it getting in the way. I really want to hear and feel my 808. So I just went ahead and low cut it, around 160. And when you listen to it, I didn't give up any. I didn't really give up any of the sound. So if you're gonna low cut a snare, that's how you really want to make your adjustment. You want to cut as much as you can, um, to where it still sounds the same as it does without the low cut. But then that way you're getting rid of these rumbly frequencies that are just gonna mess things up when you go to master it. Because when you're in the mix realm and you're not putting any mix bus compression on it, all you won't hear that stuff. But then once you start to bring all the levels up at the same time, with a limiter or something, you're bringing up all that low end crap too. And then all of a sudden your bottom end, it all goes to mud, and you don't know why. And it's because you didn't take the time, to get rid of this stuff that maybe you thought didn't make a difference. So after that snare, I added this what I call the reverb or the verb snare. And the point of that was just to add some extra space to the drums. Um, R&B type of vibes. You want it to be real open. You create openness with this was a situation where I chose to use mix verb as an insert on the channel. Usually when I'm doing reverb, I'll strictly use it as a send. But whenever I'm doing one of these really super washed out, drowned um, sounds that I'm going to be stacking with a snare, and this is going to kind of play the back, I choose to do it in this fashion because, when you think about the routing, this actually is, you're just kind of making your own send here. Not to get too confusing, but, for these type of things that are going to be in the back, this is an application where I really like mix verb. something that's gonna be playing the background of a main snare, like I'll usually go for, the cheapest, cheesiest reverb that I can just to make it sound, kind of trashy and dirty. This was really good for that. I just adjusted the mix to taste, pretty heavy on the reverb there, and the EQ. I'll either use the mix tool or the EQ as a method to gain stage, before touching the fader. So that's what this is all about. You see, I'm just getting signal up here. I don't have anything down here, so that's why there's no cuts in that. Um, so that this sort of drum pattern, this is what we had, basically just going through the first part of the song. Now in the chorus, I chose to, instead of bringing everything together and making a really loud chorus, I chose to I chose to go low with the chorus. So I added this trap crash sound that I use into the mix, and then this sound right here is just it's a noise drop from some EDM sample kit that I have. Um, this is what you got. You see, first it was just the crash, which that would have been fine, but it would have been pretty basic. So I wanted to add something on the I wanted to pan it, have this on the left side, have this on the right side, and add something that had kind of like a stutter or some type of rhythm to it. So what I did was I used the Effectrix plugin, and then just set the stutter to the default stutter. That way, this thing is like a gated sound. Soaked it in my reverb. Pretty in the right. So that kind of added the transition effect, because with an R&B record, most of your beat work is going to be done in your transitions. You're not going to be having a whole bunch of crazy melodies and counter melodies, because you need room for the singer to do their work. The R&B track isn't so much about the producer. It's more about I'm sorry, it isn't so much about the beat maker in you. It's about the producer in you. It's about how can you arrange these sounds to be interesting. Um, Going from verse to chorus, I also added a tom roll. That was pretty dope. And that thing is just you know, Studio Drummer Garage Kit. This is a really good plugin. It comes, with Complete 10. I don't think I did any type of crazy processing with this. I don't believe. I just cut some of the subs out, cut some of the highs out, put a decent amount of reverb on it. And a good trick, if you're not used to producing R&B, or stuff that where you want to incorporate more of like a live sound to your drums, um tom rolls always go good into a crash. I mean, that's like a natural drummer move, the da 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 da. That's, you're always used to hearing that sound. So after you do a tom roll, put a crash. It'll sound natural. Now for this next part, you know, I wanted to change the intensity of the song. I wanted to make it a little harder, you know. So I went ahead and switched up from this muted kind of Drakey snare to more of an aggressive hip hop snare. And I changed the drum pattern to give it more of a boom bap type of vibe. And I added a kind of a stuttery hi hat. So this is what I wound up having. All right, so the kick is out of Urban Fire 5. I know it's almost a $200 kit, but it is this thing is so worth it. I think they're on number 7 now. Right now, I need to actually get number 7. I got their Quake kit recently because I didn't want to buy another $200 drum kit, and the Quake kit is really cool. But these guys, like, once you have their drums, they're called Sonic Specialists. Once you have their drums, like, you're good on drums. You don't need to go around and go find a whole bunch of drums. Like, you'll have everything you need. But that's the snare is just a basic type of hip hop snare. Something you're pretty used to. Again, just rolling off the low end. I like it. It reminded me a lot of the really like 90s West Coast snares, kind of junky. Um, I kept the reverb snare going with it every other hit. Added this open hi hat. And then this was really cool, the closed hi hat. You notice how I have the open hi hat panned. My rule is whenever I have an open hi hat and a closed hi hat, they're not gonna come straight down the center at you on top of each other. You know, they both occupy the same frequency space. You have two speakers to work with. You have two headphones to work with. There's no reason why you should have two similar sounds sitting right on top of each other, you know, coming down the middle of the stereo signal. You're wasting space, you know. So I typically pan, you know, my closed hi hat left, my open hi hat right, at least 50%. If I can get away with doing it 100%, it's sounding good. That's my goal. But sometimes, you know, sometimes that sounds a little weird for a hip hop mix, even though it is pretty common. The closed hi hat, what this is, you know, it's a 132 roll. And what makes it sound cool is that I went ahead and put a beat delay on it, quarter beat ping pong, and that gives it extra movement. It's gonna bounce from speaker to speaker. So it kind of, you know, it kind of gives the drums this nice little trippy vibe. You know, it's different. It's different.
I search, can't find nobody like you never. 'Cause you got me
and it doesn't need to be, like this is one of those things where you got to make a decision. Yeah, it's a really cool effect, and not a lot of people do it, and you might want to show off like, hey, look at my new hi-hat style or something. But you got to remember what you're doing with the song. Like, this is an R&B song. This isn't about my little hi-hat idea that I had. This is about the singer. This is about her voice. This is about her emotions. So while it is really cool when you listen to it in the context of the mix, it's playing the background because that's what it's supposed to be doing. Because had I would have pushed this up, I'm sacrificing, higher frequencies that I need for her voice to shine, because she has really like a breathy thing going on. So I can't, have my hi-hats going hammer time all over this thing. Um, and that's really the extent of the drums. It's nothing too crazy. It's just, for one, picking out great samples, making sure you have a good sound library. If you can't get, the Urban Fire stuff right away, don't sweat it. You can still find great stuff on, freedrumkits.net. Um, it's just about, picking things that fit together and knowing what you're going to do with it. Like that, the first snare that I have, the one that I rolled off the highs to, I knew, before I even found the sample, that I wanted, a synthetic 808 type snare, and that I was going to roll off the highs. So it was less about finding something that sounded good right away, but something that I could work with and mold to sound like what I wanted it to sound like. And that's going to, especially if you're mixing your own work, that's going to make your mixes a lot easier. It's just getting the right sounds, when you're picking them. And if you're sending work off to someone else to be mixed, it's going to make your mixes a lot better because mixers aren't magicians. They can't just, you can't just push out a beat and then expect, a mixer to make your stuff sound, better. The only mixers don't make your stuff sound better. They just make sure that you could hear all the stuff that you did. That's another thing a lot of people don't understand. So, that's another thing. If you're having trouble with your mixes, you want to make sure, hey, do I have my basics down right? Am I picking the best samples? Do these samples fit? Because that's all mixing is. It's just making sure that I could hear all of these tracks. That's it. It's not, you're not making anything sound better. You might be making something sound, more present, by adding harmonics to something, but it's not making it sound better. It's just, making sure you can hear it. So, keep that in mind, and have that with your mentality when you're going in, because you'll notice I didn't really have, I told you about the list of, problems. I didn't really have that many, with my drums. And the reason that was, you know, wasn't because, I'm crazy talented and I don't have any problems. It's just because I took the time, to think about what I wanted to do. I had a goal, and I selected the right samples to achieve that goal. So yeah, that's as simple as it is. You want balance. You want to create a hierarchy of, what's the sound that's going to drive your mix. If it's going to be your 808 and your kick, make sure it's the loudest. Mix everything else around it. Make sure your hi-hats aren't dominating the vocals. Nobody really likes that sound unless it's, a rock track where the vocals sit in the back. And be creative with delays and reverb. It's all right to use a stock reverb if, in a creative way. You don't want to use it as, as your main space provider, unless you're really customizing the room reverb plugin and you don't have anything else. That's perfectly fine. The room reverb plugin is great, but you don't want to be using Mixverb as your main space creation. You can use it more as an effect. But yeah, that's it for the drums. We'll be coming back shortly to show you what I did with the instruments and how I got the vocals to sound nice. So don't forget to go to studio1tutorials.com, check that out, download the Miami Subs 808 edition. And this is Concrete Zebra, and we'll see you on the next one.